Hello, wrestling fans. This is Sal Lasardo reporting in from Orlando, Florida, with this week's edition of Rough Cuts. And this week's edition, we're going to talk about what happened this past Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, as it was indeed Dynamite. We're going to talk about Shaq and the return of this. This. I think we know what this is, right, guys? The Four Fingers. We're going to talk about that. And I'm going to answer one of your fans' questions. I got an email, and I'm going to answer it right here on Rough Cuts. Please be advised that these are my opinions only. They're not affiliated with Bill Apter or AEW. Let's get right to it. Shaq's appearance on AEW. A lot of questions going in, stories around it. How was Shaq fair, even though it was a mixed match? Each one had a female partner. The question really is what was going to happen with Shaq and how was he going to do? And to tell you the truth, I was impressed. I was thoroughly impressed. He power bombed Cody, and he did the Brody Lee thing, which is out of respect for Brody. I mean, Shaq was the heel in this, and that was amazing. I mean, Cody Cody took it, and they locked up a little bit. The girls were fantastic. I mean, you can't dispute the girls and what they did in this. I mean, you didn't expect Cody or Shaq to take a fall in this per se, but you expected the girls to really shine in this. But Shaq had a say in it, and I was thoroughly surprised. First of all, Shaq, power bombing Cody was something, but then they set up the two tables, and when they set up the two tables, you figured Cody or one of the girls would go through, but nobody expected Shaq of the whole thing. He's standing on the apron, and Cody nailed him, and he went. Cody went over the top and got him, and they both went through the two tables. Shaq went through took the blunt of it, and he sold it very well. If you look closely, you see the fingers wiggled on Cody, signaling, "Hey, I'm okay, no problems there." But it had to be a surprise to a lot of people that Shaq took this kind of a bump. And, it looks like the work was paying off. And he really did, he hit his spot with Cody, and he hit his spot going through the two tables. I'm sure his buddies, basketball buddies at CNC, are going to rib him a little bit. But I was very impressed. I hope it wasn't a one-off. I think he looked fabulous, especially with Paul White down there. We could maybe see them get together. Very, very intrigued and very pleasantly surprised in seeing exactly what Shaq was capable of doing. Should have been on a pay-per-view? No, I didn't think it should have been for the pay-per-view. But for a Wednesday night like this, absolutely. 100%. This should not have been on the pay-per-view, but for a Wednesday night Dynamite, yeah, absolutely. The ratings showed they did just under 1 million in ratings, and people wanted to see what Shaq was going to do, and I was very impressed. So kudos to Shaq. I hope it's not the last that we see of him. And also, let's give credit to the girls. The girls really battled. Yeah, the heels won, obviously, but um, the girls really put on an amazing match, and they shined and they took the risks. And what could you ask? All around, very great match, very good match, very watchable. I encourage you to watch it. And, definitely had to be impressed with Shaq. You had to. Anybody who wasn't, I mean, what more did you want from him? No one expected him to go through two tables, and he did a perfect power bomb on Cody, and you couldn't ask for any more than that. I mean, perfectly done, perfectly executed. 5 stars to all people involved. We'll switch gears for a moment here. The FTR was in the ring with Jungle Boy and the crew, and as you know, Tully Blanchard made his in-ring debut after being not in the ring for a very long time. Remember, this is the Tully Blanchard of now, not Tully Blanchard of back when he was champion. And he had James J. Dillon in the corner. And yeah, he didn't get involved really too much until the very end when they did their their drive into the mat. FTR has been very impressive since coming over from the WWE. You cannot argue they're the champs, especially with Tully. you cannot honestly dispute what the FTR has done. There was a masked man on the side of the ring helping out. They thought it was a camera. It turned out to be Shawn Spears joining the group. But when Tully got in and and did his thing, yes, he is older, but still, he did his thing. I like the fact that Charlie Blanchard is really a true class act, even for a heel. When he pinned the Luchasaurus guy and he tapped him on the chest, you know, that was just out of respect and class. I mean, that's something that you see in wrestling as well. And Tully Blanchard showed pure class, and that it always has in his matches. He'll tap the opponent. Yeah, I owe you one, thank you. And I didn't want to see Tully get pinned. See him win was absolutely amazing. To actually get the pinfall was absolutely something. And you had James J. Dillon. It just felt like the Horsemen were almost there. And then when it was over and Shawn Spears was revealed, who came out, Arn Anderson pointed at JJ and Tully and gave the four fingers, the signal of the four horsemen. Could we see this revival of the Four Horsemen with FTR, Tully, and Shawn Spears, and you got JJ in the corner? Yes and no. I mean, Tully can't get in the ring like he used to, so that kind of, takes away it. But for a brief moment, we saw it. We saw Arn come out of respect and give the thumbs up to JJ and Tully, because Tully did look good. For the little bit that he did, very impressed. He still got it. He can't go 20 minutes nonstop, but the time that he got involved, he was very, very impressive and could not have been more proud of what Tully did in the ring. I mean, Jungle Boy and them, yeah, they're the future. Tully's having a swan song kind of thing, a revival with the Horsemen. Take nothing away from their opponents. They're not going anywhere. They got their whole careers ahead of them. But, this is about the champs. FTR continuing to gain respect and momentum for when they left the WWE. And that brief moment of that Four Horsemen signal, could we see it? I would have loved to see maybe Barry Windham back. Maybe Barry came back and we could have had a true reunion. Obviously, Flair's in the WWE. People said, where's Flair? Well, Flair's in the WWE, so Flair's not coming back. But Barry Windham was a part of the group. Maybe Barry Windham could have made that appearance. That would have been something. Barry's not under contract. I would have loved to see Barry come out. Maybe Barry gets involved. I just don't see how Tully could get in the ring on a regular basis and compete for titles at his age. They would have to add another member, and then maybe JJ and Tully manage together. Shawn Spears would be a perfect fit with the FTR. Now you got to find somebody else. And I think maybe they could revive it in some way. I think it'll get over from a merchandising standpoint. And, just from a nostalgia perspective, just to see Tully and JJ on the outside, and maybe occasionally Tully gets in the ring and does a couple of spots. So again, I loved it. It just put a tear to my eye to see Tully back in the ring and Arn coming out at the very end. Awesome. Well done by them. Well done by Shaq. I want to answer a question on this brief edition of Rough Cuts. Mike, yes, Mike from Orlando. Thank you for tuning in for Rough Cuts. Thank you for watching. He wanted to know was, when are we going to see Brian Cage versus Lance Archer? Wow. Now, is that a main event anywhere in the world? Two of the biggest, meanest, baddest men on the planet. As you know, Brian Cage is managed by Taz. Lance Archer is managed by Jake Roberts. And when are we going to see it? Well, Mike from Orlando, I'm going to tell you when we're going to see it. First of all, Cage is scheduled for the pay-per-view against Jon Moxley, a fighter face for the title. Are they gonna pull the title off Moxley and give it to Cage? If they do, it's a possibility we may get it a little sooner. I don't think Moxley's going to win it just yet. I think we're going to see. I think this is going to go on a little bit because Moxley, I think, and Omega are expected to go to do battle as well. I think Brian Cage is going to put on a heck of a fight. I don't think it'll be the end of it. I would be shocked if Brian got the title in this, especially even with Taz in the corner. I think it's just the beginning for them. And I think that the way it happens is that it could be a number one contender match at some point between Bryan and Archer, or Brian Archer does get the title off of Moxley at some point, but I don't think it's going to be just yet. Now remember, Archer lost a Double or Nothing to Cody, so he's got to get some momentum going, and he's got to start getting some racking up some wins and climbing up that ladder before he could face Brian Cage. So I want to see some racking up of the wins, and I think that has to happen first, and I think it will. They have never met before in singles matches together, so it's inevitable that they will meet. Will it be this year? It's only March. Could we see it? I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say by October. I think 6 months from now is a very realistic possibility. Regardless if Cage gets the title off of Moxley or not, I think in 6 months now, by October, by one of their fall pay-per-views, I think we're going to see Brian Cage versus Lance Archer. Could you imagine the promos alone with Taz and Jake Roberts? That alone is going to want to get me to tune in to see the match. But these are two of the finest quality wrestlers in the world right now. And I think it would be one heck of a matchup. It is pay-per-view quality. It should not be on Dynamite. It needs to be on pay-per-view, either as a number one contenders match or Brian Cage gets the title off of Moxley at some point later this year. It's the only way. It's got to have some kind of relevance. And I think that relevance will then only make it more wanting to watch and see what's going to happen. So Mike, yes, I believe it happens. I believe it happens in the fall. I believe it'll be a number one contenders match. If or Cage gets the title and Archer gets on the roll, it could be for the title, one or the other. So I hope that answers your question. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this edition for Rough Cuts. As always, be safe and may all your matches be a main event. Check out my latest article on VokeNation.com. I do have an article that's been posted this week. And next week, I will preview WWE's Fastlane. I will cover that for you, and we'll also get some more AEW stuff for you fans out there. And again, if you have any questions that you want me to answer, just like Mike from Orlando sent me, email me at salnbandit42@gmail.com. That's Sal, N as in Nancy, bandit42@gmail.com, or catch me on Twitter at @Lasardo. Send me a question, and I'll answer it on my next video. Again, until next time, this is Sal Lasardo reporting in from Orlando, Florida.